Picture this. It's 4:30 on a Friday arvo in 1974. The sun is beating down on the bitumen like a hammer, and you've just clocked off a back-breaking shift. You walk into the local, dust still thick on your work boots, and before you even open your trap, the publican has a coldie waiting on the bar. You didn't have to ask. You drank what your old man drank, and he drank what his old man drank. In Australia, beer was never just about getting a bit maggot on the weekend. It was geography. It was a tribal badge. It was state pride poured into a glass with a two-finger head that'd hold up a 20-cent piece. If you were a New South Welshman, you wouldn't be caught dead sipping a Victorian lager. You'd rather lick a dry bone. And a West Australian, they'd rather drink dishwater than touch anything from the eastern states. But then, the big corporate suits moved in, the blokes in the shiny shoes who wouldn't know a mash tune from a wheelbarrow. They swallowed up our local breweries, the ones that smelled like malt and hops and defined the skyline of our suburbs. The tanks were drained, the neon signs were flicked off, and the names that once ruled the taps vanished faster than a tray of party pies at a footy final. Most Aussies under the age of 50 have never even heard of these brews, let alone copped a mouthful. These 7 legendary Australian beers are stone cold dead. Not rebranded, not craftified for hipsters. Just gone. And with them, a whole way of Aussie life went down the gurgler. Consider the legendary Resch's Dinner Ale, or DA to the locals. Back in the day in New South Wales, Resch's DA wasn't some fancy boutique drop you'd find in a bar where the bartender has a wax moustache and a man bun. It was as common as a backyard hills hoist. DA was a dark amber, malty beast, heavy enough to let you know you were drinking a real beer, not some fizzy water. It was the ultimate home brew. You didn't go out and get blind on DA. You sat at the Laminex kitchen table with a plate of roast lamb or a couple of meat pies and enjoyed a bottle with the missus while the cricket was on the wireless. It represented a slower, more domestic relationship with the amber fluid. You didn't scull it in a dark pub while trying to avoid a blue. You sipped it during a yarn about the day's work. But as the big brewing conglomerates took over, they decided that light, fizzy lagers were easier to sell to the masses. DA was quietly taken out the back and put out of its misery like an old farm dog. When it vanished, so did that quiet, dignified ritual of having a substantial beer with dinner. It was replaced by the pub binge culture we know today. The beer died, and a bit of our suburban soul went with it. Take a squiz at the original Emu Bitter, the version the Sandgropers still swear by. Now, if you head over to Perth today, you'll still see Emu Bitter on the shelves, but don't let the label fool you. It's a ghost of its former self, mate. The original EB was brewed at the Swan Brewery right there on the banks of the river. It tasted like Western Australia, sharp, bitter and heavy-bodied, shaped by the local water and a don't mess with us attitude. To a Westie, Emu didn't just taste like beer. It tasted like independence from the wise men from the East who thought they knew better. When Swan was gobbled up by national brewing groups in the 90s, the suits decided to standardise the recipe. They softened the blow, lightened the body, and turned a local icon into a generic lager that tastes like it was filtered through a wet sock. The old-timers noticed the second the first drop hit their tongue. The bitterness was gone, replaced by something that tasted like it could have been brewed in a bathtub in Sydney. Today's young blokes think Emu has always tasted this way, but they're dreaming. The real Western version is extinct, buried under a mountain of corporate spreadsheets and bad decisions. Cast your mind back to West End Export, the pride of South Australia. Once upon a time, Adelaide had 2 versions of West End. The standard draft for the everyday punter, and the export for when you were feeling a bit posh. Maybe you just won a cheeky 20 on the Greyhounds. Export was the aspirational drop, slightly stronger, lagered for longer, and served in a distinctive green bottle that screamed, "I've got a bit of class, me." If you walked into an Adelaide pub and ordered an export, it meant you gave a toss about what was in your glass. It wasn't some imported muck from overseas that tastes like perfume. It was South Australian brewing done properly. But as the world got smaller and international brands started flooding the bottle-o, export lost its shine. The big breweries figured that maintaining a separate premium line for one state didn't make financial sense. By the time the 90s rolled around, it had quietly slipped into the history books. South Australia lost its flagship premium lager, and if you ask anyone under 40 about it today, they'll probably think you're talking about a shipping company or a brand of wheat. Spare a thought for Ballarat Birdie, the country beer that never wanted to be a city slicker. Brewed locally in the heart of Victoria's goldfields, Birdie was a straightforward, no-nonsense drop. It was the beer of the working man. Miners drank it to wash the dust out of their throats after a shift underground, and farmers knocked it back after a 12-hour day in the paddocks. It wasn't sophisticated, and it didn't try to be. It was reliable, local, and honest. Unlike most politicians, small regional breweries like the Ballarat Brewing Company used to be the lifeblood of their towns. The beer didn't travel far because it didn't need to. The locals drank every drop before it could even get to the town limits. But when the consolidation wave swept through in the 50s and 60s, these small town operations stood no chance against the industrial giants. Birdie vanished without so much as a headline in the local rag. What we lost wasn't just a label, it was the whole idea of local production, beer brewed by the people who live next door to the blokes drinking it. Now we just get mass-produced swill that all tastes like it came from the same vat. Think about the glory days of Bulimba Gold Top, long before gold became the king of the north. Brewed in the Brisbane suburb of Bulimba since the late 1800s, Gold Top was the definitive Brisbane beer. It wasn't just Queensland's beer. It belonged to the city. It had a slightly sweeter profile specifically designed to be drunk ice cold to cut through that thick, sticky Brisbane humidity that makes you feel like you're living in a giant's armpit. It came in a bottle with a fancy gold foil cap that made you feel like a king even if you were just sitting on your back veranda in your stubbies and a singlet. The Bulimba Brewery was a local institution employing generations of families and shaping the identity of the River City. But when Carlton and United Breweries moved in to consolidate the Queensland market, Gold Top was seen as an unnecessary extra. They wanted one brand to rule them all, and Gold Top wasn't it. Production stopped. The brewery was eventually turned into fancy apartments for people who probably drink kombucha, and the beer vanished so completely that most Brisbane locals today have no idea their city once had its own flagship lager. It's a bloody tragedy, really. Remember the working man's hero, KB Lager, or Kwinana beer, for those in the know. Over in the West, KB was once as common as sand in your thongs. It was the ultimate dependable lager, clean, affordable, and served in every pub from Perth to Port Hedland. It wasn't marketed with fancy ads featuring talking dogs or celebrity chefs. It was just the beer you had after cricket, after work, or at a backyard barbie while the snags were burning to a crisp. As branding strategies shifted and the big players decided to put all their eggs in the Swan Draft basket, KB slowly lost its spot on the taps. By the early 2000s, it was discontinued, leaving a hole in the hearts of West Australian drinkers who valued a beer that didn't try too hard. Younger West Aussies know their Swan and their Emu, but KB has slipped almost entirely from the collective memory. Like a lost set of car keys at the beach, it's gone the way of the dodo, and we're all the poorer for it. Reflect on the tragedy of Two Hays Old in its original form. Now, don't get your knickers in a knot. I know you can still buy Two Hays Old at the Bottle-O, but the old you're drinking today is a shadow of the brew that used to grace the taps of Sydney pubs. The original Two Hays Old was a heavy, dark, full-bodied masterpiece. It was a winter beer, the kind of drop you'd order in a schooner while watching the footy on a rainy Saturday when you're freezing your guts off. It had character, it had depth, and it had a kick that'd wake up a dead horse. Over the years, the recipe was softened to appeal to a wider audience, probably people who think a lemon wedge belongs in a beer. It was modernised, lightened, and stripped of its intensity until it became just another dark lager. The name on the tap stayed the same, but the soul of the beer was gone. What drinkers under 40 know as Two Hays Old isn't what their grandfathers were pouring down their throats. It's a corporate imitation of a once great Aussie icon. It's like buying a Ferrari and finding out it's got a lawnmower engine under the hood. There was a time in this country when every capital city had its own brewery within sight of the CBD. You drank what your suburb brewed, what your state defended, and what your mates swore by. Beer wasn't just a drink, it reinforced our geography. A Queenslander drank differently from a Victorian, and a West Australian wouldn't touch an Eastern lager if his life depended on it. He'd rather walk across the Nullarbor barefoot. Today, the shelves are packed with choice. We've got craft breweries in every second shed, international imports from places we can't even find on a map, and national brands that taste the same from Darwin to Hobart. But the old state beers, the ones that built our pub culture, fueled our factory shifts, and anchored our backyard rituals, have mostly carked it. It's not because we stopped drinking, mate, far from it. We're still the world champions of the cold one. It's because brewing stopped being local, and when the big tanks shut down for the last time, we lost more than just a bit of malt and hops. We lost a piece of our identity, so next time you're at the local, raise a glass to the beers that didn't make it. They might be gone, but they're certainly not forgotten by those of us who know what a real beer tastes like.